Again, things went on much as the same until it was time for me to leave school and get a job. I recall going to the youth employment and talking to someone and was referred to Mr. Alf Theobald at Tabram's farm at South Woodham. It was about 8 miles from Rayleigh. I went on my bike. We were quite used to travelling around by bike, so it wasn't a chore. Mr. Theobald was a big man, nearly 7 foot tall, and as I would learn, was very, very strong. And he would take 2 56-pound weights, one in each hand, and rattle them above his head. He had a limp. I never even found out what caused it. He interviewed me, and it was a pleasant meeting, and he took to me and offered me a job at £2 10 shillings a week. So I had joined the ranks of the employed. Looking back, this was a farm in the transition period. It had very little modern machinery, an old Fordson iron-wheel tractor, a Fordson Major, a little grey Ferguson. There was also an International harvester. The rear wheels were nearly 6 foot tall. It was old even back in 1955. You poured petrol into a pipe on top, blew it through the carburetor. I always ended up tasting petrol for the next hour or so. Then you had to crank it, make sure your thumb was on the left side of the crank. If it backfired, you'd have a sore thumb, or at worst, a broken thumb. Jim Carter, the foreman, told a tale how he said no one would ever get it stuck, that's too tall. But a previous employee, fed up with him telling this tale, drove it up and over the sea wall and onto the mud flats and the saltings. Needless to say, it sunk up to its axles and had to be poured out. He had to go. Tabram's farm. Tabram's farm was nice and neat. It was on the creek, which came off the River Crouch, lowlands marshes all about. The dairy herd run on low fields, lush grass increased the milk yields. Wheat and oats and barley up higher grew, horse beans and potatoes too. The Crab and Winkle railway track from Wickford to Burnham and back cut the farm in two, the corn would burn when ashes flew. Heavy horses were in hand, Prince, Bonnie, Chubby and Cherry worked the land. One of the last traditional farms of the past. Such a shame they didn't last. I was lucky to work like this. Now we all go on to realise, to reminisce. Now modern machinery is it the way that sow and harvest in one day. As I said in the last poem, there were 4 heavy horses on the farm. Having been around horses at home, I was quite comfortable with them. Only these were twice as big, but I was at ease with them. There was a Shire Prince, a Suffolk Bonnie, another one was called Cherry, and the other one was Chubby. I can't remember what breed they were. I was not very big, but I learned to harness, groom and feed and work with them. They were used for carting crops, harrowing, steerage hoe, and I remember carting fodder beet and potatoes with a tumbrel cart when the wheels would cut in up to their axles in the ruts they made, and the horses panting, their breath condensing on frosty mornings like dragons breathing fire. The heavy horse. The heavy horse at Tabram's farm were mostly always quiet and calm. There was Blossom, Chubby, Prince as well as Cherry. They were fed an early bait, which they always hungrily ate. We fed them with chaff and oats and hay. It's amazing how much they put away. Then they were led out to the water trough. Warm or freezing, they drank enough. Back in the stables to put the harness on. That was not an easy one. 15 years old and not too tall, I wondered I managed it at all. The saddle thrown upon its back, reaching under for the belly strap. Then you'd stoop, throw the breeches spread across the croup. The crupper pull its tail through and wish it didn't give a stinging swish. The collar lifted high over its head, upside down it must be said. To the narrow upper neck turn the collar into its shoulders set. The fieldmen to the hames are hung, but from there the power comes. The bridle lay the headband across your wrist, grab the forelock with a twist. Pull its head hard down, and low into its mouth the bit will go. Then its ears pull through the top, then buckle up the chin strap. In the yard the tumbrel cart, back the horse in, work of art. Don't let the horse step on the shafts, or the governor will not laugh. Lift the shafts onto its jacks, throw the chain over the saddle's back. Breechings, fieldmen's fixed to the shafts, these gives the horse its pulling draught. When the day's work had been done, loading beef, potatoes, dung, return the horse to the stable again, brush it down and comb its mane. Feed the horse its main meal now, tomorrow it may pull the plough. I'm glad I experienced these farming ways back in my early days. It's a memory from way back when. We won't see these days again. The only way to see it now is at the heavy horses show.